Good morning. I want to thank Jean and Christine for hopping on live and all of you who are watching the recording. I'm Elizabeth Kilpatrick, and I'm not necessarily going to do this every week, but I'm just running this very first book club meeting about You Are a Badass. And we will post the schedule going forward, and different people will be highlighting different chapters. But I just thought it would be neat to get us started a little bit live. So I read this book several years ago and I can't find my copy that I read. I wonder if I gave it away or something. So super excited to get it and read it again kind of years later when I've done some of the actual work, even though it wasn't like I followed this as a blueprint, but it's kind of neat to go back to it. So had either of you ever read this before or come across it?
I've heard of it before, but I thought I'd bought one before and I scoured my house. I'm like, okay, maybe I didn't. I dreamt that. So
yeah, that's how I was feeling about I know I have this book somewhere.
Yeah, that's
it may be in my storage, but it is somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, I had the Badass book. There are two of them, and I have both of them. And I started to read the first one, and I guess for some reason, I never finished it. I never read this one. Then I received this one, and I'm reading it now. I'm kind of in the middle of a big transformation, doing all this kind of work anyway. So it's perfect.
Yeah.
And I'm enjoying it. So I'm in chapter 3 now.
Oh, okay. See, I'm just through chapter 1 because I was like, okay, pace myself. I'm the person who will get a book, and if I get into it, I will carry the book around for days like this, trying to cook while I'm also an English teacher.
You get obsessed about something that you love.
Get obsessed. I have You're a Badass at Making Money, and so maybe we'll
that's the one.
I mean, because I need some money mindset work. So okay. I just basically went through, I don't know that you guys do this, but I read with a pencil and I literally annotate things. I don't know if you can see. That's grad school and teaching for a long time. I just write my books. But I read the introduction first and I thought it was really, really good. And there were several things that really spoke to me in that first introduction. But the line that I keep coming back to that I loved from it was on page 13, where she says, I don't know where my glasses are, so I'm just going to hold it out here. You're going to have to push past your fears, fail over and over again, and make a habit of doing things you're not so comfy doing. You're going to have to let go of old limiting beliefs and cling to your decision to create a life you desire, like your life depends on it. Because guess what? Your life depends on it. Woo! That's life, business, everything.
Everything.
And then she goes on a little further down, but you don't have to wait until you've hit rock bottom to start crawling out of your hole. All you have to do is make the decision, and you can make it right now. I'm going to be using my sobriety work when I talk to people about sobriety, because that I think is huge. I think we have this idea in addiction or just life in general that things have to get really bad before we make a change. And I think most of us know deep down when things aren't quite like they're supposed to be. And it just takes us a while sometimes to come around to wow, I should do something about this. So what about that introduction did you guys kind of what spoke to you? I loved the last bit where she gets on this list, we need smart people with huge hearts and creative minds, people to feel happy and fulfilled. I just think she's right. We need people to lead the way and live big lives. I think in a lot of ways, that's what we do as social sellers.
Oh, it's very much self-developed, self-improvement. It's a self-improvement program all the way through. Every company I've ever been with in that regard.
Yeah. What about you, Christine? What did you find in this?
Well, I think I mean, through the introduction of the first chapter, it just really is like, this is me right here in these pages. Like, like I wrote down like in on the very first page, I wrote down, like I was too cool. I was too cool. Like I went to therapy. I got duped into going to therapy in high school. And I thought it was to help me. And they're like, oh no, this is for you to get better grades. And I was just like, oh, F you, I'm out, And so a lot of the messages that are that, like that I have and like the feelings that I have are exactly what she's saying, like, yeah, like I just know inside there is more that I'm not doing, right? Deep down, I knew I was a total rock star and I had the power to give and receive and love with the best of them. But it's still deep down.
Yeah, well, I think at one point she says like she like lived kind of a mundane life with like bursts of awesomeness. And that she could have like she knew that she could be more awesome, but like she didn't know how to kind of get over the hump with that.
Yeah.
The part about your subconscious and how deep set all that programming is that you don't even think about it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So much of the personal growth is about reprogramming your subconscious to believing all these things are possible.
Like I grew up hating money. Like I hated money because it brought, like it was always such a struggle in my house. And I went to an all girls private school and I was like the least wealthy person. And my mother was always like, we don't have any money. We don't have any money. Well, apparently we did have money, but it was just her limiting belief, that, and I definitely carry that with me. And I know that I need to, I mean, I'm looking outside, I have a beautiful freaking pool. Like I'm really fortunate. We have like money and there's lots of abundance and I don't know. So I'm interested to get into the book a lot and see how to help myself do that. I know it's easy to say, okay, I'm just going to not believe that anymore. But like you say, there's a real process to it. Right.
Well, and it's how you grew up and your parents grew up my parents grew up in the Depression, my mother particularly, and brought all that. And she never got over it. And I know that I have stuff from that type of upbringing as well.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm the typical, my grandparents, I was the child to be seen, not heard. I mean, I have WASPs. My great grandfather committed suicide because he lost everything. Like my family had so much money, both sides. And then I don't know what the heck happened to all of it, but just so many weird ideas about money and so much tangled up in it. Yeah, a lot.
Yeah, I grew up with a lot of what you're describing, Christine.
Yeah.
I didn't realize really where a lot of my money mindset came from. It was, I had a lot of contrast. So like my father's side of the family owned a lot of land, and in South Alabama, timberland equals wealth. I mean, that's where the money is. And so we had a lot of land and there was a lot of abundance. And so I'd go to my grandmother's house and she would take me shopping at the Gap as a teenager, and we'd drop $2,000 at the Gap. And then I would go home, and my mother was a single mother working 3 jobs.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like really.
Was she disapproving of your grandmother buying you all this that stuff?
My mother didn't know how to deal with that. And the level of dysfunction on both sides was staggering. That was so the least of it. I mean, there was a lot of manipulation. I didn't get those clothes for free. I paid for them with my behavior. I paid for them with my compliance. I paid for them. Like there was a whole lot attached to those things. But my mother, on the other hand, I mean, still, she's 71 years old. She's phenomenally talented she's a musician. She's phenomenally talented in super high demand, always has been. Like valued where she is. She's never lost a job. She's whatever. She will still get on the phone with me and obsess, like, well, I'm just worried because we're getting a new priest at the Episcopal Church and they only hired me to do this, but I'm afraid this person's going to make me do this. And then if I say no, I might lose my job. And I'm like,
oh my gosh, she doesn't have any confidence.
and she has like really, it's like scarcity all the time. And I didn't even understand that till a couple of years ago. Like, I didn't understand why. It's like I can get to a certain point with things and it's almost like I sabotage myself because somehow I feel like I'm not worthy of that, or I don't even know. Like, I'm still trying to figure it out because it's like I can get to, like, I know I'm super capable and I get to certain points in things and I truly self-sabotage in small ways by not being consistent, by not doing the things I know I should do, by making choices to do things that I know I shouldn't do. Like, and I'm learning how to do those things, but it's hard because you do, like, they're programmed into you no matter what,
Yeah.
the message is about money in particular, or just abundance in general.
When we were growing up, people didn't think about abundance. I felt like they were just thinking about getting by.
Yeah.
And not much more than them, at least where I was.
Do you think there's a shift in culture, or is this just because I'm around a bunch of network marketers who think differently? But I think there is, at least among the people I'm around, a shift from that idea of I want more than just getting. I want more from my life than just going to work and coming home and,
Yeah, I think there is a shift. And I also think maybe the generations that have come later are shifted.
Mhm.
And so we get affected by them as well.
What do you think, Christine?
Yeah, I think, like you talk about the depression and then, the 60s of, I don't know. I think, I think today there is a feeling of abundance. You know what I mean? I look at my son. In fact, I was thinking about him this morning. He is busting his behind to get an internship. He wants to go into finance. He's like, I'm going into investment banking. That's what I'm doing. It's like the most highly competitive, but he has this feeling of like abundance, right? I don't know where he got it.
Yeah.
Good
job, Mama.
Well, he's he's like, I'm going to do this and I can do this. So yeah, I guess as a mom, that's cool because I don't have the confidence. I'm a little bit like your mom, Elizabeth. I sort of have faked it all these years. But I think that's, my lack of confidence comes from my surroundings when I was younger, and maybe I did something right for him. I don't know, but I do think they don't see the scarcity situation, like today you go to the store, like, I don't know, everything's just available to them all the time. And it's not just technology and videos. It's, it's a very like now society, if I can have anything I want right now is basically, and we didn't have that. I mean, we didn't even have the internet till my daughter was born. I still didn't have the internet, which is, so I think it's a different, like there is no sort of depression now. The COVID is probably their sort of limiting.
Oh, it will be.
Thing.
Like,
yeah,
the numbers are staggering from the effect mental health wise it's having on young people.
It's terrible.
Like,
it's really terrible.
So I think that will be their
problem.
That it will be their sort of, I don't know, turning point. Yeah. I mean, I'm Gen X. Like I'm 45. When I went to college, we had no internet. I went to college with a typewriter and came out with a personal computer. Went to college with no internet, came out with, everything. Like that whole revolution happened while I was in college. And so, I do think it's generational. I also think that my generation we're a lot more pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. I think in that we were the first generation whose mothers went to work outside the home. We were the first generation that had that huge uptick in divorce and blended families and latchkey. I mean, like all of those things.
That's true.
But I say that, like my husband, I really look to him for some of the mindset shift when it comes at least to money and the subconscious programming. He believes in the core of him that there will always be enough. Like I'll start to freak out. We got in some bad financial issues during the pandemic for various reasons. And I mean, even when things were really bad, he was like, I don't want you to worry. I will always figure out how to pay our bills. We will always like, and for me, I'm like, we're going to die and we're going to have our, you know what I mean? Like, but he believes that fundamentally. And when things don't go right for him, he just believes there's something else out there. And he's just like, I've never seen anything like it, but that's because that's the way that his father thought about things.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
And
well, that's a good person to be around.
Well, he is, and I'm learning, you know, like I really am, but he has this sense that like this subconscious sense that he's always going to figure it out and it will always be okay. And it may not be pretty, but he's resourceful and he can figure it out. And so sometimes the programming we get serves us really well.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, one thing in that first one, I kept writing things like, so been there, this is me, my life, like you did, Christine. Like I read that whole subconscious thing and I was like, oh, wow. And that generational curse idea or sins of the fathers, if you're Christian or whatever the term is in your particular belief system, I thought this was one of the best explanations of that I've come across.
Yeah, it is good that way.
Like it was simple and I thought applicable and helped me, even though I'm somebody who thinks about this and has read about it, it helped me kind of be like, oh yeah, that's how that worked. The chapter, the section on page 20, like the paragraph before the bottom, I think this is so key. All of this is to say that it's not your fault that you're fucked up. It's your fault if you stay fucked up. Yeah. But the foundation of your fuck upness is something that's been passed down through generations of your family, like a coat of arms or a killer cornbread recipe, or in my case, equating confrontation with heart failure. And that really spoke to me because I think it's easy to get mired down and feel like we don't have any control. Like, oh, I've got all these messages and how do I do this? But like, it is in our power to change those things. And I think even just by admitting them and being aware, we start to make change. I hope.
Well, and start opening yourself up to thinking differently.
Mm-hmm.
And it involves doing a lot of work on yourself in a variety of ways. So I'm interested to see where it goes.
Me too. Now, I know at the end, she was like, she asked questions and she specifically started about money beliefs. Like, and I actually wrote down in my book, my beliefs about money. Like she says, like, what are your beliefs about money? What do you think? And I wrote, not enough, goes as quickly as it comes. There is virtue in frugality.
Oh, wow.
That I'm not wise with money. And that if I want things, it means I am selfish and spoiled.
Ouch.
Spoiled.
Well, that goes back to your mom and coming home from your grandma's.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And spoiled has been throughout my life the tool of control of my family for me. selfish and spoiled. And
Ooh.
that came up, and like when I wrote it, you guys, like talk about like being like, because I didn't realize till I wrote it really how much that idea has shaped my behavior, that I am selfish and spoiled. And I'm not. I know intellectually on the conscious level, like I understand that if you look at it on paper, if you look at my life, if you look at the things I've done, that no, I'm not those things. But in the core of me, that is my struggle, to feel
In
like
your subconscious.
that subconsciously, that's what I believe. That if I want more, that it is a character flaw in me. And hence I don't deserve it because I'm just selfish and spoiled. That's a hard
Okay, but on the last page, she says, but for now, practice stepping aside, notice what's happening in the dysfunctional areas of your life, like you are, and strengthen your almighty awareness muscle. And that's what I'm doing. It's like, put that magnifying glass on myself and just be aware of the limiting beliefs that I have. Yeah.
Well, and that's all any of us can do. Like, I think that if I don't look at myself and shine a light on it and realize that I can't change what I won't acknowledge.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, which is what you just said. Like, we can't change what we don't shine a light on.
Yeah.
And I hope that the rest of the book, and like, I don't even remember, like, it was great to read it because I was like, oh, I know I've read this, but it just feels like the first time. So I'm like June, I'm excited to see kind of where it ends up.
I want to see what kind of tools she suggests for doing that, because people do all kinds of meditation, listening to things. There are ways to reprogram your subconscious, affirmations, that kind of stuff.
Well, and I've had some good things happen recently that came from some of the work. Like, I do meditate every day, and I do work on intentions and like visualizing things and all that stuff. And I can see changes when I do let go and really like do that work, as hard as it is. It's just, it can be tiring. So
It doesn't happen overnight.
Well, and I like that she's not so serious about it. Like, I have a potty mouth, so the language really doesn't bother me. I mean, I'm like a sailor when I'm not being professional. You know what I mean? Like, I am a sailor. I love a good cuss word. But I like that she doesn't make it so serious. And I think that's part of the reason that it's easy to read, and that you can kind of come, like, so many of these self-help things are so darn serious. You're like, but I like,
and it's an overwhelming amount of
Uh-huh.
stuff that you have to do.
Yeah, I just love that she's just like, yeah, okay. Okay, so I'm not sure what this is going to look like going forward as far as when we're going to do stuff, but I'll be posting it before the end of the day because we're going to figure it out and consult with
Is
people.
it supposed to be every week?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The
Veronica,
chapters are really short. Like the second chapter.
like we
is only,
talked about, Veronica and Kirsty and I talked about doing like Monday and Thursday, but I'm almost wondering if we shouldn't do 2 chapters at a time once a week.
Oh,
two
having
chapters
Zooms
is only like
two
12 pages.
Yeah.
too much. 2 Zooms a week, I think, are too much.
Yeah,
we
I
have
do too.
so many.
Well, why don't we do this? I think I'm going to make a plan, but I think let's plan to do 2 chapters a week for 1 week, because they're short chapters. That's enough that people have to dig in, but not enough that they don't actually read it. Because you could legitimately scan through the 2 chapters, the 25 pages,
The
right?
night before.
You know, or however
Oh.
many pages. Does that make sense? Like 2 chapters, they're fairly
Yeah.
short.
That sounds good. That's
Okay.
very doable.
Okay. I'll post our schedule
Okay.
once I
I
figure it out.
found that YouTube
YouTube.
page.
Oh,
You
Christina.
don't need to send it to me.
Okay. I'm going to be posting all the recordings and everything. Basically, I created a YouTube channel called Hugh and Grace Team Breakthrough. And I'm just, as we do trainings and different things, I'm just going to post the recordings there. So we have one centralized place.
Yeah.
And so it's accessible down the road, like, you know, whatever. So
Well, for new people, it's just
yeah, for new
let
people.
them go look. Yeah,
Yep.
I think that's awesome.
Okay,
Cool.
well,
Thank
I'm
you for
glad you
doing
guys
that.
showed up, and thank you. And I'm
Thank you.
excited about this book. Like, I'm excited about this book. Clearly, I have some work to do. Don't we all?
I think we all do.
We all do.
We do.
I
Well, y'all
agree.
have a great day, and I'll
you.
post the rest of the schedule shortly.
Okay, sounds
All right,
good. Thank you.
you.
Bye.